Hey everybody, it's Marty the JavaScript Party, and my buddy Rhett finally gets to hang out with me today. I think we're finally starting to get some normality back in our lives. She definitely wants her nut. I cracked a walnut. It's not completely cracked, uh, but I mean, it's cracked. It's completely cracked, but it's not completely open for her. So hopefully this keeps her busy for a minute. She definitely wants it. And she threw off. There was kind of a part of it. She ripped it off and then she threw it on the ground. So pretty exciting times in the Angular voice analyzer because we have like a new property, and then when we call process locally, which doesn't work, but at least it's settable now. And then I realized that I had not implemented. This is so interesting. Property is enumerable. Um, the um, there was interim results is boolean. I probably should have set it up. So basically what happens is when you go to discrete or continuous, you can hit this little thing here and you can set um, values. You could set your properties. They're configurable here. But yesterday, for the first time since I started, I've been working on this API for a couple of years now, probably like a year and a half now. And um, this guy is the hasn't changed. And this has only existed for maybe 6 months, probably. And this hadn't ever changed. And then yesterday, it was like, oh my gosh, there's a new property. So definitely want to add that to my configuration. Now, this is one of those funny things where you're like, so when I was a kid, I remember one very impactful thing that happened was, um, like I was at work. I was working at this place called Bella Vista, which like really changed the arc of my life in a big way. Because at Bella Vista, I was working there in like 1984, and in 1980, and it was this restaurant that was in a beautiful like mountainous scenic place, and I was a busboy there, and then I moved on to be a carrier, and a carrier was like someone who carries food out to the tables. What was interesting about them was that they could seat 5,000 people in 1984, so they could serve literally 5,000 people at one time. And there was many times where they had 5,000 people seated and then 5,000 people out waiting in line. They had this line would just go on and on and on for like probably a mile, maybe farther. I mean, it was just like Easter Sunday. It would just go forever. They actually had this rule that like if you were late one of the owners of Bella Vista they were these immigrants from Italy, and they would stand there next to the time clock, and if you were late, no matter who you were, on Easter Sunday, you were fired. Period. No, no if, ands, or but. It didn't matter. You were fired. Um, and so these two Italian dudes would be standing there, and they were like in their 70s. They'd be standing there next to the time clock, and like you would just roll up on this place, um, and even if you were waiting in line to get in, like let's say you got there and there was just everyone, because time clocks basically they had one time clock, so they probably had like 400 employees working, maybe 300 employees. I know that the biggest room that they had could seat like 800 people. I think it was called Vista, and it could seat 800 people, and they had like 40 waiters. And then in general, for every waiter you would have two busboys. No, it's the other way around. For every two waiters they had a busboy, and then so that would be 60 employees just in one room. So, um, there was like a couple hundred people that needed to use that time card. So if you showed up, like let's say 1 minute before you're supposed to be there, in general, if you showed up 1 minute before you were supposed to be there, you normally couldn't log in on time because you would have to wait for other people, and and so in their scenario, even if you were waiting in line and you'd been there, you were fired. They were very clear. If you log in, if it says if you were supposed to be in there at 10 a.m. and you logged in at 10:01, you're fired. And that was just for Easter Sunday. Um, so, and I remember one year we barely got there. Like I got a flat tire on the way there. There was four of us. We were all busboys, and fortunately somebody had pulled over and helped us, and we were able to get into work. Um, and we got there just on time, in time, and there was no line because everybody knew if they logged in late, they were fired. Um, but anyways, the thing was is they had massive computing all around there. They had these Sun workstations, and basically everything was all computed. They had two full-time programmers, and so that was good. But one day I was trying to understand why my early on when I was working there, I was trying to understand why my time card had why my schedule changed. Um, so I went to go ask the manager, and it was interesting because that was an interesting situation also because the office for the managers was way down the end of this long dark hall. And so you'd go into the hall, and it was cement ground and very plain walls, sort of like if you were in the military or if you were in prison or some sort of like highly industrial kind of environment. It was completely dark except you could see one little light of like on the side of the left, way down at the end of the hall. So you'd go kind of walking down the hall, which was a little creepy, and then you knock on the door, and then the door would open, and then you go in, like they'd say, "Come in." You open the door, you walk in, and typically there was like three of them. There was like the head manager, the manager of the front end, and that was all like the front end, front of the house, which was like the waiters, busboys, bartenders, those type of people, their manager, and then the manager of the back of the house, which was the cooks and dishwashers and people like that. And so I was trying to figure out like what I did to get to lose hours or to have an hour change or whatever, like what it was I did that I could change or whatever. And I remember the manager, I always remember him. His name was Chris, and he had like really crazy hair. But I remember he goes, "Here, hey, oh, can you do me a favor?" And I was like, "Oh, sure." And he's like, "Can you put your fist out?" I was like, "Okay." And he goes, "Can you put your other fist next to it?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Can you do this, like rotate it?" And I was like, "Okay." And he's like, "That's see the one your fist in the middle that's staying still?" And I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "Yeah, that's what you think the world is. You think the whole world revolves around you. There's hundreds of employees here. Things have to get shifted around. You're probably it's going to probably be at least 6 months before your schedule really stabilizes." So the world, it's nothing you did, it's nothing about you. The world doesn't revolve around you. So like that really stuck. But it's hard when you're looking at a situation like this where like we were literally, I was right on the edge of being done with this application, and suddenly a new attribute shows up, and it's just like, is somebody watching this and they added that so that I would put it in this tool? Who knows? It's easy to think that, and there's just no telling. Sometimes you are being watched, sometimes you're not. Sometimes it is about you, sometimes it's not. Um, you know, but anyway, so now we want to make this configurable. But now that it actually happened, I realized that if all I did was come in here, I wouldn't have really had any way of knowing if I didn't, like when I did my explanation, if I didn't just happen to scroll all the way down, I would have missed it. So I need to add some sort of indicator. And also, by default, I may go to here by default. Like if this is what I bookmarked was this discrete page, and then I wouldn't even know, because so what I think I need is a count up here of how many of, if like, or not a count necessarily, but like a little exclamation mark or something up in here that tells me if there's anything that happened down here. And you know, it's so obvious now that it actually happened that I needed it, but it wasn't particularly obvious when it happened. So, anyways, that's that. And I want so that I think that's what I want to work on next is before we take care of this configuration and then make this part of the expected things and then change this date to like June, August, September 1st. Um, uh, I want to add like a little red exclamation mark if there's anything in here. Um, I think that would be cool and useful. So, anyways, without further ado, I mean, once you know there's something in here, there's it's. I don't think it's a big deal. Just scroll to see what it is. Um, but let's figure this out. And now the other thing is in my other. Oh, and what are? Okay, so I think I should commit this code as is with all of this stuff. There's a couple pieces that are still to do, but I think this is a good time to do a commit. So let's do that. So first, what I want to do is, so for this application is a little different than the other application because in the other application I have end-to-end testing and unit testing. I do not have any of that here, so I don't have to worry about that. So apparently I have a change in indicator component, which kind of surprises me. And I don't see what it is. So there's both have 32 lines. I don't really know what's going on here. Let me make this bigger. So it says there's some sort of change in here, but whatever that change is not obvious. What happens if I do this? So when I so I went to stage it, it's like, no, there wasn't. That is hilarious. That is absolutely something I don't even know. I don't even know what to think. That was weird. I'm glad I got that on video. Um, so it said there was a change in there. I went to stage it, and then it just acted like it never happened. And that is so the way, just the nature of code these days, where like you just get all kinds of false negatives, false positives. Not super code just isn't particularly reliable anymore. Um, so I think we have a real mess in code. All right, so I think that makes sense. And this is actually a different change than the other one, so I think I'm going to wait on that one. Um, so I guess there'll be two commits. Okay, so this was just a reminder, so I don't think I want to commit that. Wow. App component. Okay, so this was a change in that, but also a lot of imports. That. So really, I'm just looking over to just make sure there's nothing like just silly or embarrassing or stupid in here. So that's a good one. So this is part of implementing the help the menus. Okay, and this is all part of implementing the menus, and they all look good to me. Actually, I think, yeah, that's what that is. Oh, actually, that's all about implementing the styling within the actual pop-ups, and then this is implementing the menus, and I think it all looks good. So this is the actual hamburger menu, and then these are the pop-ups. So I think that looks good too. So, I mean, that's good stuff, you know, we really don't want to lose it. And we don't, like, if we go down some kind of weird path in the new code, it would be a bummer to have to just get rid of everything and lose all of our hard work in the pop-ups because we've completely gone down a path that we just want to nuke everything. Git commit -m implements menu and pop-ups. So that's a good commit. I like that commit. And now we need to do this one. And this definitely is going to change again. So, because, you know, eventually I'll get it to where that's an expected property. Right now it's still in the, hey, we found it and we weren't expecting it. Um, the process locally. So let's do that. Git commit -m and then tweaks the text for the because as a result of the new process locally attribute. All right, now speech service. Okay, so that's good. All right, so the next step it will be to put like a conditional thing. So if something's in here, this gets a red exclamation mark is what we want. So step by step, the first thing we have to do. Okay, and so here's something that I did want to sort of acknowledge. So in my other space and time application, I've sort of matured, I guess would be what you would say, or possibly I've decided to start kind of changing the way I code. Um, just a foundational change to my process of software development. And in that process, I really want to put a lot more thought into optimizing for um, uh, location, like structure, infrastructure, architecture, spatial. Um, like I want to be able to kind of sit there and contemplate, okay, where should this code go, and then go look in the place where it should go, and then go update it. The, that's not all I want to do. Like I still want to stay with my um, sort of my bread and butter, the thing I'm truly good at, and that's at sort of doing detective work and working through things step by step and figuring out exactly where the problems are in an existing system. So all this code is sort of designed for that. So it's easy to set debugs. There's obvious places to put debuggers. There's obvious places. It's pretty easy to just follow along and figure out exactly where it is, and you don't have to contemplate um, where it exists. And if you look at the code structure right now, it really does have it does have separation like in the components, but it does have a service that sits here at the top, and then it has a services, and it's not really in contemplating where things go really won't do you a lot of good in this um, because I just didn't optimize for that. Moving forward on new projects, I will put a lot of optimization. And I will say, I guess probably the biggest reason that wasn't even aware of that sort of concept. Um, but the reason I became aware of it was because when because I've started doing a lot more back end work, and on the front end, I don't think it's particularly useful to separate things like that out because it doesn't matter. The front end technology is always changing so fast, and you're always destroying and rebuilding so fast that like setting up all these formalized structures is probably not particularly useful. Practical, it's practical but not useful. Well, the thing is it's really nice because one of the awesome things about working on front end is that you get a lot of practice. Like things change and you're making things all the time, so you get like practice, which really makes you very flexible and better at like coming up with new ideas and being creative and stuff because you're just constantly recreating, and you can't even continually use the same. Like in front end, I really do think today's uh, so like what's right today will be wrong tomorrow, right? Today's pattern is tomorrow's anti-pattern. That is just there's just no truer words have never been said about front end, but I don't think that is particularly true in back end. Back end is much more stable and static. But like if you and you have a lot more control. Like you decide what version of Java you're going to have. You decide what version of PHP you're going to have. You decide what version of Node you're going to use. But you don't decide what browser people are going to use. You do not decide which version of a browser they're going to use. Um, you don't decide what's happening. So one of them, you're sort of like at the whim of the user, and the other one you have full control over. So it's just a whole different thing, but you get to practice things a lot more and on the front end, but things are a lot less stable. Um, so that's just sort of the reality. But this code is optimized for figuring out what you want. So I think if I just search on API, I'll be able to figure out exactly the best starting point to go. And that whole scheme works a little bit on back end, like if you're doing .NET, C Sharp, or if you're doing Java or whatever, but not really. Like there's some things that you just kind of have to know where everything is. You can't detective it out. Or if you do detective out, it just takes hours and hours. It takes so long. Um, so API. And so if I say that I want it to match the case, I should find exactly what I want. It's kind of wild that it's not showing up. I wonder if there's something that's forcing it to. No, I was wondering if there's something that was forcing it to uppercase. So, don't know. Oh, here it is. It's this guy right here. This is one standalone API thing because it's on its own line. All right, so I'm going to turn that off so it doesn't mess me up in the future. I'm going to leave that whole area. And actually, I have worked in places where leaving this text here makes your whole system, like, cripples the entire system because it's constantly searching for stuff over massive thousands and thousands of lines of code. So let's just get rid of that because it's a good habit. And we have our API, so we're going to have our question mark. Okay. So this is a multi-step process, right? There's probably like 10 processes we need to do. One, the first process is up to you. There's a million different, like the one of the things that's challenging about modern front end development is that like there is no good starting place. There's a bunch of stuff that has to be done. It could be done in parallel, and you have to do it at the same time in the same branch. So you can't divide it up amongst a bunch of people, but at the same time, you don't have like okay, now I start here and do this. Now I start there and do that. So anyways, it looks like our app component is where things are. Maybe in the future I will, or in the, I don't know. I don't. Maybe this should have been like its own little component. I don't know, but this is how it is right now. So we have our question mark. We're showing that we only. So one thing we could work on right now is showing the question mark when we tell it to show it and hiding it when we don't tell it to show it. And the name of that should probably be like um, so basically if one of these is missing, if we find one of these, if there's one, if there's one of these or one of these on the screen we want to. So if there was a new property or there's a property we expect. So I guess it's change, API change. If that's true, we want to show the question mark. If it's false, it's not. A different route we could take is we could just start working on how do you set up an icon in there. Like can we get an icon in there? We don't have icons in there right now. So we do actually communicate though. It looks like we already do like if there's any logs, it gets populated. So yeah, so we have this span app log count indicator, and I did create a specific function for that, and I think that our specific component for that, and I think that makes sense because like I could make it, and maybe that does make sense. Maybe, I guess it does make sense to do it this way, because then only this needs to know how to listen. I don't need to add the logic inside of this app component. I don't know how much logic is in there now. See, there's already a lot of stuff going on in there. Um, so, you know, like if you can keep things like under 100 lines of code, that's pretty helpful. And this is already at like 110. I think anything under 100 lines is probably pretty easy to maintain. If you start, it's not too bad if it's like under 300 lines. You start getting to close to 500 lines and things start becoming pretty tricky to maintain. And then I think if you go over 1,000 lines, it's just unmaintainable. So that's kind of a thing I kind of keep an eye on and see. This is, so if I looked in here and I saw that there was only like like if literally all we had was like our constructor, um, and you know, stuff like that, I'd probably be like, okay, let's just bring that um, bring that code into here. But since it is already kind of big, I think it makes sense to create a new component that knows whether it should display nothing or whether it should display itself. Um, so I think that is the route. So basically that new component would put the little question mark there. So let's go to our packages. And anytime I go to my package, I always just close everything else. It's probably not necessary this time. It would probably be better to leave it open, but I just kind of like that rule. I like that. I think that's a habit that helps me a lot. Um, so, and this concerns me, right? So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 components. I probably don't want to have 7 components. I probably want to have, like, I know I don't want to get to 10 components. My personal experience is that if you have less than 5 components, you should leave them in the folder. Or if you have less than 5 items in a folder, you should just leave it in there. But if you get more than 5, you should start strongly considering dividing them in a intelligent way. And then if you get more than 10, you probably are really on the point of no return, where like if you go much more, you're not going to be able to, like, even if you want to divide them, you're going to have too many issues trying to divide them up. So it seems like we could take these indicators and put them into their own folder. So let's go ahead and do that. And so as you see, we are just going from one rabbit hole to another rabbit hole. And I really don't know a better way to do that, but I'm going to create a new folder called indicators. One reason I like doing this a lot is because this used to be so hard. This used to be like one of the most difficult tasks in all of JavaScript, is refactoring to move things. And now it's just the easiest. It's so crazy how something went from being one of the most difficult things to the easiest things. Okay, so now I've got my indicators, and so I think what'll happen is I should get a pop-up that just fixes all this stuff for me. But it does take, sometimes it's instant, and then sometimes it takes it a minute. So update imports for yes. I don't want to put always, because I like to know what it's doing, but. And the thing is it doesn't save it when you do that. And it is weird that it should have broke already, because we actually did move this thing. But let me come in here and save this. See if anything breaks. And this is the kind of task that, like, if you do it and you don't make any mistakes, it's so simple. And it's also the kind of task that, like, if you make mistakes, it can be an absolute nightmare. And this will probably be its own commit too. and I don't know. Something doesn't feel right. I can't quite put my word on it, put words to it, but it doesn't quite feel right. So I'm stopping and restarting the um, the server, the Angular server, um, which is quite slow. And I don't think it was quite slow in the previous version of Angular. Yeah, so that's, well, I thought it was pretty fast in 19. For some reason I thought this was 20, but I wonder if I should do an upgrade. Maybe that'll be the very last thing I do is before I distribute it is do a upgrade. You kind of want to do an upgrade before, because like if I'm all done, I do upgrade and then I push it. Like the odds that I find some weird edge case goes way down. All right, so that seemed to work fine. I'm still a little nervous about it, but so now I'm going to move my log count indicator into there. Yes. So now it says it's rebuilding. It detected a change and it's rebuilding. Everything seems to work. There's no telling. There could be something broken in there. All right, settings, dialog. All right, so now under our components we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I still feel like we're too high. So it looks like we have each one of these has its own little each tab body has its own component. So because this API seems to match with this continuous, discrete, and logs. So it would be good to move those three into like a tab bodies folder. So let's do that. I'm just going to call it bodies. Is that right? Tab content. Tab content. Seems like a good idea. And then we're going to take our logs and move it over here. Kind of let that do its thing. And then we're going to take our discrete and move it in there. We don't want it to go into logs. That's something that is pretty easy to mess up. I don't know what's taking so long. So this says moving discrete. I've never noticed that before. It's got the little spinner going. So this is probably all kind of things I noticed maybe like 3 or 4 weeks ago, and it said, hey, we're at the end of this. I don't care about expansion. And then suddenly this new property showed up, which kind of is forcing me to expand. And so then it's like, at some point you have to decide. Okay, so this is just something seems to be going wrong. Yeah. Error, EPERM operation not permitted, rename. So it wouldn't do it. I don't know. It's showing things that are not, well, I don't know what it's showing. But let's restart and see where we're at. Something's probably broken now, I would guess. We still want to move. Well, I don't even know if the move worked now that I think about it. Yeah, see, all we have are logs still. So the move didn't even work. This can get really unreliable at the when the application is gigantic. Like if you have a massive application, this sort of refactoring. And then this is also the kind of refactoring that can be just absolutely devastating to get. Um, like if somebody's actively working in a different in one of those components, and and you move stuff like that, it can make the Git merge so bizarrely confusing. So everything seems happy right now. It seems like it restarted. Hit refresh. I didn't see this thing restart though. All right, so I'm gonna try to move discrete over again. I think discrete was the last one I tried to move over. Just absolutely make sure that it's moving it into tab content. So we have our moving discrete little thing here. What happens if you click that? Notification. It'd be nice if there's a little bit more information, but what is this? So configure the do not conserve. What does this do? So it says this will hide it. Hiding it moves it down there. This sort of thing is just constantly changing. It's just sort of the reality that we operate under. It just seems to be stuck. I think it's going to fail again. I think what I'm going to try to move it and just say no, and then just manually fix whatever needs to get fixed. Yeah, so it still wouldn't do it. So I'm going to take my discrete, I'm going to move it over. I'm going to say move, and then I'm going to say no to the manual input. Or I may have to just turn this off and try to do it. Or I might have to move it like in Windows. Just and that has happened to me before, where like you just, for some reason, the IDE doesn't know what's going on. And like, how would I know why? Right? Like that's a kind of one of those things where like when you're a senior developer and you're dealing with juniors, like a lot of times they're very upset with you because you don't know why something like this is happening. So it's like, I didn't write this IDE or anything like that. I don't know why the IDE isn't working. But yeah, this seems like it's even going to die before it even, I thought it was asking, but I guess it's not even asking, it's just dying. Yeah, so let's just do this. And this honestly is not the first time this has happened to me. I didn't really remember before I started this, you know, like a lot of times. I believe we can say, so there was a time when you could say reveal, yeah, reveal in File Explorer. Yeah, and that will move your, so that moves you to your, to there. Again, that's not one of those things that always works. And then tab content. So that has logs. So we're going to take discrete, Control X. I would say probably, well, when I first started, kind of moves is open in another program. Maybe that is my problem. But see, I don't even have this thing open. Do I still, did I kill the whole? I would say probably when I first started doing this sort of activity, maybe 3 out of 4 times I would have to kill everything and undo all my changes and try again. So yeah, something is locked down right now. So I'm going to kill my whole. It's kind of funny because I do remember this happening to me in the past, and but I didn't really remember it a second ago. Like when we started this whole project process, I did not remember this happening. Okay, so now we have nothing open. We don't have, so it should allow it. But when we restart, it will die. It will die. And we really don't want to do too many of them. We don't want to do multiples because it will likely, it could get really weird trying to fix this if we have like multiple versions of the application, or if we move a whole bunch of them at one time. It is the most tempting thing in the world, though, is to like go like, okay, I'm going to move all of the tab content into a single fold. Yeah, so now it's upset, which makes sense. So we can hold the control button down, I believe, and click this. Nope. That did work, though, but I think if we hold the Alt button down, no. I could have sworn it was, maybe it's this one. So it's upset inside of the routes because it's in a different place. Oh, that's right. We want to hold the control button down and click on the actual file, and it'll take us to it. Okay. Okay, I don't like the way this is. I don't know why it's like that. But it's upset that discrete components, that doesn't exist. And that's because it's inside of tab content. Tab dash content. All right, so, and I should have just copied paste that one. All right, so this should be interesting. Now it'll be interesting to see if I can move it and it fixes things. Or if I should just like let it break. Oh, there was another one too, though. And that's in this service. And basically it's just another one back. So basically when I moved it farther down, deeper into nested, it's the interface that it uses is higher up. I think the first time I ever kind of had to figure out what that was about, it probably took me 2 hours, 3 hours, and see, like, I just instantly recognized it. Those are sort of like where you get better at things, that it's just really hard to like sort of express. Okay, so it looks like our record, is this the same? So we have a record button component that's also got the same issue. Okay, so discrete also has its own, has other, it had components inside of it, and those components also have broken things. So as you can see, this is much harder because the tool didn't do it for us than the other one. So now we have two of them. So we know, and we are in our discrete, so we're in the actual discrete component. So we know the discrete component is a little deeper. So that's the fix. That's the fix. Now what's the deal with this one? Setting, discrete settings dialog component. Okay, so that's, I think, also the fix. Sometimes I just like, if I see that pattern, I'll just like, oh, let me try this and see if that fixes it. All right. I will say that this is literally 100 times easier than it used to be, but it still can be really tricky, and it's pretty easy to botch. So we're seeing this pattern, right, with this, so we know that it's probably just a depth issue. We don't really need to sort of dig in and figure out exactly why. Sort of, I don't know what the difference would be like we just know that the problem is it's probably one up, We don't need to go look and count everything and make sure this went up. That's just probably what it is. Um, Now we got a problem in our app components. So this one is not one up. This one is that it should be in tab components, which I remembered last time that there was one right next to it that had the same issue. And now, boom. Okay. Let's just reload. See, this is where it'd be nice to have end-to-end tests so we could just try everything, but right now we're not. All right. So we have another component. I definitely would never want to leave it like this where we have only 2 of the 3. API and continuous. I guess we'll try it. Do you think we should try it? I'm going to try it. If this one fails, then I'm going to go back. The last 2 I'm just going to move over and just deal with it since we kind of have a good idea what the issues are. So that happened. That was a lot better. That happened a lot better than the, because we never even got to that level in the previous one. It's just like, no, can't do it. Can't help you. Now it's still showing stuff broken. It looks like it compiled, but it's showing things broken. And it's not showing them changed. So I don't really know what is going on there. And I don't know if I should go in and make changes myself at this point or if it's still kind of working behind the scenes. I don't see any indicators that give the impression that it's working. But we know that our API component is now inside of tab content. It looks like it's unhappy with something that's going on in routes as well. So since we see this red thing, we'll go over here. And it's the same issue. And like, I mean, it's hard to even explain why, but like, you used to get, like, if you did something like this, sometimes all the bugs that would be caused by moving things back, like when in pure vanilla JavaScript, would take years to sort of surface. So we have no more red ones over here. So I don't really understand why. But let's go, and it says that there's a problem in this guy. Okay, so anytime we see this pattern right now, I think I'm just going to immediately just type in like that and just assume that I'm a layer deeper than I used to be. So that's the problem there. All right, so it looks like we're good in the neighborhood. Now one more. Continuous. So, and we did 4 of them, right? This is the 4th one. The first one, it all worked perfectly. The ID took everything. Second one, the ID just absolutely refused to do it. We had to shut it down because we couldn't even copy it manually in the operating system. Like, we had to actually kill Visual Studio Code to even be able to do it. Then the third one sort of half did it. It did like the move, and it apparently it updated some things, but it didn't update other things. So like we really, and then here's the 4th one, and it looks like it's probably going to fail because it's just sitting here on this one. So basically we had 4 things. It looks like we had 3 different things that happened. Maybe we haven't even done the 4th one yet. We might have some completely different 4th thing. So like, and that's kind of what I was saying earlier. It's like this sort of action in the past would have been very consistent. If you sat there in one session and did something, it would, whatever it may work, it may not work, but whatever it did would be consistent. Now we we're like doing the same action 4 times, and we're getting 4 different experiences, because this time some of them experiences are on my side, like I'm this time like, oh, okay, didn't make the copy, so I need to kill um, the IDE so that I can make the copy. And I think I'm already in the right place here. Okay, so then uh, we'll restart it. And so what has happened now is, so we have our components, and we only have 3 directories in here. We have indicators, we have settings, dialog, and we have tab content. And then at the top we have the app component. Now, this will always, like, let's say we worked on this project for another year, this will always change the way we work from here on out. The way we work will be forever modified by the fact that we modified this thing. So, like, because basically once we got to like 10 folders, there was enough of variation to know what types of components we might want to group them up into. Um, and So, like, let's say we had done this differently. Instead, like in the app component, we'd made little dialog boxes for these pop-ups. Um, if we in that case, we would have another folder for these little dialog boxes, right? Like, and then if we ever wanted to add another dialog box, we would just automatically create a folder, and we would do whatever we were doing for the other dialog boxes. It would change the way we do dialog boxes from here on out. So these sorts of decisions, while they seem sort of unimportant, they're just insanely important. All right, so I think I had a lot of luck with kind of going backwards. So I'm going to hit Control, and we're going to go to the routes, and we're going to fix the routes. And I know, since we've already done this 3 times, that its problem is going to be the same as the problem that the other 4 had. Now, rebuild we can do, like, so that was routes. It's upset in this component, so Control button. And anytime we see this for this session, we've learned that that just means we're probably too deep. Now, this one seems different because it doesn't have like layers of these. Okay, so settings. So it is, but it isn't. It's the same. Basically, the settings dialog is up here. So now I could imagine in the future us having 2 different settings. Like, I initially thought we'd have 2 different settings. We'd have one inside of one for discrete and continuous. Now, there was like kind of 2 ways we could have gone about that, right? Like, discrete could have had its own, and I think that's what I originally did. Discrete had its own setting, and continuous had its own settings. And once I saw that they were identical, I had to sort of refactor for that so that it was a consistent one. But, like, let's say down in the future we decide, oh no, we need a discrete and a dialogue. It wouldn't surprise me if I end up creating a dialogues folder, or settings folder, or settings dialogs folder, and then putting the 2 in there, because we've sort of changed just generally how we do things. So we've encouraged certain behavior and discouraged other behavior. So it's not going there. Maybe because we're already there. Did I not? Oh, but I never saved it. All right, we know what this means. control and this one. Look for the red one. We know what that means. So as you see, like, since we've kind of been through this a few times before, I'm not like making any effort at this point to figure out what happened. I just kind of have a good idea what I need to do to fix what's happened because we learned it on the previous ones. But it's very important that you go through the process on the early ones of figuring out what's happening, because if you're making a mistake, it could be really tough to undo that. All right, so this seems to be working. I believe this is working. I have no reason to not believe it. I guess we should at least try discrete. Hello. Okay, so that worked. And the logs are filling out. Hello, hi there. How are you? And everything seems to be good. Go into logs. We see the logs. I feel like the logs have become completely useless, but I'm leaving them there. Anyways, their day may come. It's kind of interesting. So do I use this? It's kind of weird that it shows them, but I think I need this. Do not believe. Yeah, see that? I believe that is necessary, even though the IDE doesn't realize it's necessary. All right, so let's commit this, and this is refactor by moving things. And basically this was all because I'm going to create a new component, which is going to be an indicator. So the new component's going to go in there, but I feel like we've done enough. Git add dot git commit dash m moves components into folders. So that's a really good and important commit, because like there could be some weird edge case that breaks in the future, and when we're looking at the git logs, we'll have it'll, if it did break because of some weird edge case, it probably won't be super obvious what it is, and then if we're looking at the git logs, we'll be like, oh yeah, no, that would probably cause this, whatever weird thing is happening. So I think that's good for today. And I'm going to work on my other video. Oh wait, okay, is it not running? Maybe I never did try. Oh, I wonder if I didn't try it. And I have definitely done that before, like had stuff in cache or whatever, and I thought everything was working, and then I didn't double check, and then all right, so we got that. I don't know. Hello. Hello. And there we go. All right, so that's good. Happy coding, everybody. Bye.